So just a reminder, I am not a political channel. I'm a philosophy channel that moved away from politics because I was political my whole life. I actually just today was going through my old photo albums and found a picture of my brother and I at a Tea Party protest when we were Republicans. Well, when I was a Republican, because he's still a Republican, but like, when I was a Republican like 15 years ago, okay? So I've been political my whole life. I grew up in a very political family. They were very active in politics. I grew up being very active. I had lots of aspirations to be political, only to realize so many of the people at the time were Republicans, because I was involved in that community, were liars. Literally saying one thing out loud and doing another behind closed doors. The epitome of a grifter, okay? Then I joined more liberal communities. Then I joined more progressive communities, and I found trouble in all of them. But what I really found were people being just imperfect and people who had different values and solutions for everything that was happening around us. So in today's video, we're going to review what happened in Amsterdam over the weekend, because the way that the story was told is so different depending on the bubble you're in. So let's dissect it for ourselves. I've pre-watched everything I'm going to show you because, again, I already came to my own conclusions over the weekend, but I want to see what your conclusions are. Now, we're going to use a specific model that I created. And again, this is my special interest. Philosophy and categorization is my special interest. So I created a levels of perception. You guys probably know this as the macro, societal, individual, and specific consciousness. We've talked about this tons of times on my channel, but if you're new to my channel, I made a little picture for it. Okay, I'm really excited. So levels of perception. So we're going to view this story from the macro perspective, meaning outside of human perception. Think universe, okay? Because outside of human perception, we are sort of just existing, okay? Then, you know, we form society as human beings. So I think we're evolved on a planet. I don't know what you believe, right? I don't know what you think got us here, but I think, okay, we're organisms in a universe that form society. So the society perspective is formed constructs around agreed values. That's usually what society is, right? Which is why there's so many conflicts, because we can't agree on those shared values. Then there's the individual, but this is specific. The individual is a single human as perceived by others. Okay, so the human beings are being perceived by others and then giving, oh my God, did I misspell things in my chart? I did, because of my dyslexia. Anything that's misspelled in my chart, tell me and I'll fix it after stream. But I definitely misspelled some things in this chart probably. Ugh. It looks good in my head, just so you know, okay? I put Marco instead of macro. Wow, beautiful job, Brittany. Beautiful job. Wow, amazing. I knew it too. I promise you, I looked over my chart and I was like, there's no way I fucked up. There's no way I fucked up. I was so confident in myself. This is why I love brains. I love brains. Okay. So then there's the individual. So this is the individual as perceived by others. So this is the outside looking in, right? And then the specific consciousness. Did I get consciousness right at least? Okay. A single person who has a deep relationship with themselves. Okay. So then that specific consciousness, that is you looking from the inside out. Okay. So individual is being perceived from the outside in, and single consciousness is inside out. And that's very specific, because when we're having this conversation, we're having a conversation around perception. This is why it is so interesting to me, the way people told the stories of what happened in Amsterdam this weekend, because it changed based off perception. So what I'm going to do is went ahead. I'm going to pull this up for you. So here's what TikTok and how TikTok was telling the story. Of course, I'm on pro-Palestinian TikTok for the most part. Obviously, you know, so I'm getting mostly pro-Palestinian perspectives, but I also hopped over to the pro-Israeli side to see what they were saying about the conflict. And there's two very different stories being told. So here is the TikTok I want to show you.
Followed earlier anti-Arab chanting and violence by some Israeli fans. Here's what we know. Hundreds of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans were in Amsterdam for a match against Dutch side Ajax. Before the game, a pro-Palestinian demonstration had been banned by the mayor over fears there would be clashes between protesters and Israeli supporters. The day before the match, police said there were several incidents across the city.
He says, hold on, let me get you the text. Maccabi supporters ripped a flag from a building in the central square. And they destroyed a taxi. The flag was a Palestinian flag. A Palestinian flag was set on fire. This is from their organization, like they're Dutch police, right?
On the day of the match, a large group of Maccabi fans gathered in Dam Square in central Amsterdam. Some arrests were made after trouble between the Israeli club's fans and pro-Palestine protesters, police said. Then, on their way to the match, some Maccabi fans were filmed singing racist and anti-Arab songs.
Let the IDF win and F the Arabs. That's what the song is.
After the game, it followed earlier anti-Arab chants.
Okay, so that is the short summary of what happened, right? So we're dealing with that particular story being told that way. If you go to the pro-Israeli side, the story is that innocent Israeli football fans came to Amsterdam to support the Israeli side and were attacked by Arabs. They were run down and beaten and all of these things. And so the way that the media spun it was very specifically, obviously pro-Israel, to the point where even the president, so this is Joe Biden's Twitter account, says the anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli soccer fans in Amsterdam are despicable and echo dark moments in history when Jews were persecuted. We've been in touch with Israeli and Dutch officials and appreciate Dutch authorities' commitment to holding the perpetrators accountable. We must relentlessly fight anti-Semitism wherever it emerges. So obviously, like, I was kind of surprised that Joe Biden got on it so fast, but then not so surprised given that Israel is our ally. And so obviously they have an obligation to say something publicly. But again, the story for the first 2 days in mainstream media was Israel was being hunted down in the streets. Israelis were. Even I saw YouTubers talking about it, saying don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Jews were being hunted down. Yes, people who were associated with tearing down a Palestinian flag, saying F the Arabs, and singing death chants were absolutely in conflict with people on the streets. The videos were horrible. So I want to talk about it from that perspective as well. Again, we're observing human behavior as it is. Now, in a stream a couple days ago, I think Friday maybe, I mentioned it very casually, ooh, this is why I don't like crowds of people. And people were like, Brittany, it's not just crowds of people, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I stand by what I say. I don't like crowds of people. Mob mentality, mob violence, not my jam, not good. I think almost always ethically bad, but open to the possibility that sometimes political violence is a part of pushing narrative forward. So obviously context matters, okay? Here is a more structured video about the situation. Okay, let me pull it up for us. This is from Democracy Now! And this is a more structured video. I'm going to also speed her up because she talks a bit slow. They both do.
I wanted to ask you about where you are right now. You're at The Hague, Mouin Rabbani. But I want to ask you about the latest news nearby in Amsterdam, where police beat and arrested more than 100 pro-Palestinian protesters on Sunday after they defied a ban on demonstrations following street clashes between visiting Israeli soccer fans, many of them violent, and Dutch youth. Unrest in the city began on Wednesday when fans of the Maccabi Tel Aviv football team were seen chanting such slogans, and I want to get those slogans right, but I'll be careful in what I say. Let the IDF win and F the Arabs, but of course they say F, referring to the Israeli army's offensive in Gaza. Another video captured a fan screaming, F you terrorists, Sinwar die, everybody die, in reference to the Hamas leader who was assassinated.
Okay, just really fast. Anytime I see a crowd of people and there's smoke involved, I would never. With peace and love, first of all, this is why I don't go to sports events in general. Sports are incredibly political and very violent. And I'm not going to make some misandrous joke about this is what happened when men gather, but bro, this is what happens when men gather, apparently. People die over sports. And then you add in the element of politics, violence is going to go down. And it's very interesting to me about how it happens, because I just sit there and go, okay, this is not cool. I would not be proud of my relative if they were engaging in this violent behavior, but it's very, very common. And now that I'm in Croatia, there have been some football events, soccer football events, and it is very interesting. They're very patriotic. They're very into their games. I'm not opposed to it. I just feel very uncomfortable when I see very large crowds of people who are, with the spark of the wrong energy can be very dangerous. It could just be very dangerous. And it turned into a very dangerous situation, right? Okay.
terrorists, Sinwar, die, everybody die, in reference to the Hamas leader who was assassinated last month. Amsterdam's mayor blamed, quote, anti-Semitic hit-and-run squads, but many observers in Amsterdam said the Israeli fans were responsible for instigating the violence, the Israeli soccer fans known as hooligans. The violence grew into an international story as Israel sent planes to evacuate the Israeli fans. On Sunday, the Israeli journalist Gideon Levy wrote a piece for the newspaper Haaretz in Israel, headlined, "The Amsterdam attack shows Israelis' denial of the reality they created." In it, Gideon Levy writes, quote, "Why do they hate us so much? No, it's not because we're Jews. Not that there isn't anti-Semitism. Of course there is, and it must be fought. But the attempt to pin everything on it is ridiculous and mendacious. The North African immigrants, the Arabs and the Dutch people who rioted, saw the horrors in Gaza over the past year. They're not willing to remain silent about them. This is another cost of the war in Gaza that should have been considered. The world will hate us for it. Every Israeli abroad will be a target for hatred and violence from now on. That's what happens when you kill almost 20,000 children, carry out ethnic cleansing, and destroy the Gaza Strip. It's a little quirk of the world. It doesn't like those who commit these sorts of crimes." Again, those are the words of the Israeli journalist Gideon Levy.
Okay, before we move on to that part of the interview, I want to go to comments, because I want to make sure we're seeing this from, again, we're not putting ourselves in their shoes. We are actually going to take ourselves out of it and look at it from the macro perspective and just ask ourselves, like, what are we observing, right? Okay, like, what are we really observing in this moment? Okay, so everybody ignore the fact that I have typos in this chart because I'm dyslexic and obviously did not proofread it enough, even though I was so confident in myself this morning, okay? But in terms of levels of perception, when we're talking about the macro, we're talking about like outside of human perception. We're like floating in space on this planet and we exist here. And then we form a society, and that society is full of individuals who are perceiving each other, and they're having this conflict, right? They're having this conflict over a perception of what they saw. So, pro-Palestinian Arabs saw Israeli people tearing down a Palestinian flag, burning a Palestinian flag, saying F Arabs, die terrorists, saying things like, there are no children left because like we bombed your schools. Are there, saying really horrific things. But then, of course, if you even zoom out of that lens, the violence that occurred afterwards, I would actually argue was, though very human, and humans are going to human, is it ethical? Is it moral? So ethics are about what's good for society, and morals are your personal compass. So the question is, if you saw someone tearing down a flag and screaming anti-Arab stuff, and you saw them burning a flag, does this warrant the retaliation that occurred, right? I'm sure you guys saw some of the videos. I don't think I can show them on YouTube, so I'm not going to. But basically, they were attacking Jewish or Israeli people and saying things like, for the children, for the children. And I saw a lot of people on TikTok like praising them and loving them for this. But I ask the question, and this is from a philosophical lens, they say you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And then the question is, do we recognize the violence within ourselves? Do we recognize how violent we are? Israelis are, without a doubt, promoting genocidal violence. The IDF is supporting a genocide. They're carrying out a genocide, right? Like, no matter how we phrase this, like, people are dying, and violence rhetoric is a part of that narrative. And I find it fascinating that human beings see themselves as such good people, but yet the premise of their belief is the violence. Now, I used to think like this. I used to be a conservative. I used to be very like, wipe them out, kill everybody, because that was the bubble I was in. And I personally take a pretty radical stance even now that violence is never the answer. And self-defense, though justified, is rarely implemented. I think most people believe in retaliation as a means of justice, and I don't. I don't believe in revenge, retaliation. I think war is petty. I think war is the fact that we had to go to war to destroy people is the fact that we haven't had a better relationship with our biological experience. I think violence is a lower self. Like, engaging in violence is engaging with your lower self. Okay? I'm not saying it's not human. I'm not saying it's not obvious it's going to happen. I'm not saying any of these things. But what do you think? Like, what do you think about the fact that this is what people are justifying, like the acts of violence? And I think a good example of this is, what's Taylor Swift's boyfriend's name? What's his football player's name? Gosh, I really don't know sports. His brother was approached by a man who called his brother the F-slur for dating Taylor. So he grabs his phone and he smashes it.
Kelsey. Kelsey!
Hey, Kelsey!
Kelsey!
How does it feel your brother's
Kelsey, can I get a fist bump? Kelsey, can I get a fist bump?
He gets supported by the gay community. Everybody's happy he did this, right? Travis Kelce is who Taylor Swift is dating. His brother, I think Jason Kelce is his name. He takes this phone and smashes it, calls the guy an F-slur back. And people were really, really supportive. But he came on and said, hey, I don't want to meet hate with hate.
The thing that I regret the most is saying that word, to be honest with you. And the word he used is just ridiculous. And it takes it to another level. It's just off the wall and over the line. And it's dehumanizing and got under my skin and elicited a reaction. And like in the heat of the moment, I thought in my head, hey, what can I say back to him? I'm going to throw that right back in his face because him. I know now that I shouldn't have done that because now there's a video out there with me saying that word, him saying that word, and it's not good for anybody. I think what I do regret is that now there's a video that is very hateful that is now online that has been seen by millions of people. And I share fault in perpetuating it and having that out there.
People were like, don't apologize. But I actually respected him a lot more. Where I was like, yeah, as good as it felt to see him smash the phone, it is meeting hate with hate. It is not in self-defense. It is out of retaliation. And it's not reasonable. Like it's not, or I should say it's reasonable, but it's not the highest degree of introspection, right? So I really liked that he held himself accountable using his own values. And I think that's beautiful. So his own personal morals, I think actually benefit the ethics of society. I think it is ethically correct to not meet hate with hate. I think it is better for society that we always act within our stronger values. And it's not about being the bigger person, though you could call it that, because being the bigger person should always feel like the right answer because it coincides with your values. If you do not want to be the bigger person, that's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to have that as a moral perspective. But I think ethically, it's really important we be the bigger person. But I don't know if you know this, and this is the trick of the mind of politics, is they will convince you being the bigger person means being a pussy. And I will just tell you this right now, that's not what that means. Being the bigger person does not mean allowing bullies to bully. That's not what that means. But that's how they trick you into thinking don't ever be the bigger person. Because they want to convince you that being the bigger person means you're weak. It does not mean you're weak. Your strength and other, like it is a form of strength, and it can be exhibited or it can be experienced without falling prey to the quote bad people. I'm going to put quote bad people in parentheses here, or in quotation, sorry. Okay. Now chat says, just a thought, why does the president have a Twitter if it's so important? Why tweet? Twitter isn't just a social media page. It is actually how Americans get their news. So we have to remember that the presidents need to use social media to be heard by the most Americans. And it is why we use social media. If Americans are going to keep getting their news from Twitter, from X, then the president has to be on X. And so I think it's reasonable for him to do that, right? And then I saw another comment that I wanted to comment on. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Chat says, but people can't pick and choose when men can be violent, though. It's either violent is toxic masculinity or positive masculinity. It can't be both. I don't know what this comment is about, but anytime I hear people talk about positive or toxic masculinity, I genuinely feel like people don't know what they mean by that. I don't think people understand like masculinity isn't inherently violent any more than femininity is. Like feminine rage is just as violent as masculine rage. It's just different ways of expression. Toxic masculinity isn't inherently violent. It's why it's violent. It's the why. Toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, like these are the whys, right? They're not talking about masculinity being violent. They're talking about why they choose violence, which I would argue that toxic masculinity is at play here. Because the way these men seek respect is by bullying down the other person. So the Israelis bully the Palestinians and the Palestinians bully the Israelis, and they attack each other, both feeling justified in their belief because they're both going after, quote, bad people, right? And I think the toxic masculinity might be people saying, I can't believe you were a pussy and you didn't fight back and you didn't say something, but I said something. I punched somebody. I hit someone with a crowbar. I did this. Now, again, the news first reported that the pro-Palestinian side just randomly attacked the Israelis. But now news is coming out, and obviously TikTok already knew, independent journalists already knew, that Israelis the day before had already burned flags, attacked a taxi driver, had enacted violence, and the pro-Palestinian side retaliated. I think this is what's difficult. When is it time to stand up for yourself? And what do you do to do that? How do you feel proud of yourself at the end of the day? Would I feel proud if my brothers, fathers, whatever, they came home and said, oh, yes, we saw a man burning a flag, so we beat him up? Would I feel proud about that? Would that be something that I would feel proud about? Right? And this is a personal question. This is a question I want you to ask yourself. Would I feel proud about that attitude? Right? Would I feel proud if my family came home and said, oh, yeah, I took down a Palestinian flag from a rooftop, or I took down a gay flag from a rooftop, or I took down this, Muslim flag from a building, like I took it down, fuck the terrorists. Like if I had a family member say this to me, would I be proud of them? Right? And that's really hard to imagine because right now we have a lot of people feeling very justified in their violence. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, where are your values? And when do they matter to you the most? Now, obviously, it's easy to call yourself a good person when you've never been tempted to be a bad one. Okay? So this is a common philosophical debate that happens where people say, what is a good person if you've never been tempted to be a bad one? And I agree with this very deeply that it's very easy to see yourself as the good guy until you've been offered $10 million by the Russians. Until you've been given an opportunity to do something bad, until you've had somebody, try to seduce you out of your marriage, until you've had an opportunity to be responsible for the child you gave birth to, until you had an opportunity to either kick the dog that was barking at you or give it food. Like you have opportunities in life and it's all about what you do in those opportunities. It's not about what you talk about outside of them. So when given the opportunity, what do you do? And why is it you do what you do? So it's not black and white ever. It's always like, why did you make that decision? Okay, let's continue with this interview because there are parts of it I want to talk about, okay?
Piece for Haaretz. Mouin Rabbani, can you talk about what happened?
Yes, well, just to pick up where you left off.
So this is a journalist from Middle East Eye, or Eye of the Middle East. I forget how they say their name, but he's one of their journalists, I believe.
In fact, their favorite slogans were "Death to the Arabs, May your village burn," and "There is no school in Gaza because all the children." Oh,
there it is, Middle East Analyst. If you guys have seen the Oh, wait, I could be wrong. I think I was associating him with that independent news channel, Middle East Eye. I actually think he's just a Middle East analyst. My bad. I was associating him with that. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? I always forget everybody's name, but there's a news organization I've been following. I was associating him with them, but that's bad. That's wrong. I think he's just a Middle East analyst. My bad.
Children are dead. But it wasn't just about racist and genocidal slogans. These Israeli soccer hooligans, thugs, if you will, also engaged in property destruction, assaulting people of Arab appearance, assaulting taxis and totaling one of them. And more importantly, they were allowed to do all this under police protection. If you compare it to...
See, look at this action right here. Like, look at this visual. Like, if somebody you knew came home and was like, oh, I tore down this flag, that's interesting. Right? This is like very interesting to me. How would you feel about this? Could you be proud about this? Is there a flag they could take down that you would feel proud about? Because I do think it feels, this is going to sound very shallow, but the way it feels very similar to 500 Days of Summer when they're on a date and a guy tries to talk to her and as a retaliation, her boyfriend fights him. Like, how dare you talk to my woman? It's like an ick. It's like a feeling of why are you doing this? Why are you escalating violence? And that's what it feels like to me, but it's very I don't mean to compare it because it sounds like I'm never comparing one to one. I know a lot of people come into this channel and they think, oh my God, she's comparing it one to one. I'm giving you categories of feelings you get when you watch people escalate, right? Chad says, I feel like this sounds like an over-analyzing the person victim that is defending themselves against a person that invaded their home in an effort to hurt them instead of analyzing the robber. I think it could come off like that, but I need you to zoom out of that perspective and talk about what you would do regardless of the situation. Because when you start putting the context on it, which is very important, that is very important, you have one answer. If you zoom out, you could have a different answer. And so the question is, when are things allowed in your own personal viewpoint? I'm not telling you how to think. I'm asking you, do you know why you think the way you do? Chad continues to say, because if we were talking about morals and values, again, as a person who was born and raised here in Amsterdam, we take our progressive values extremely serious. So people coming in to challenge that is violent in its own. Sure. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. You can hold that perspective. I'm not making a prescription. I am simply asking to have the discussion because this is a philosophy channel and that's what we do. We have a discussion about when opportunities present itself, How do we act within our values and our morals? Or do we do something different? Because it's easy to say, I know what my values are, until you've been tempted to do otherwise. So if you say, like, I'm a nonviolent person, I don't believe in violence, but then you always react with violence, the question is, how important of a value is that to you, if that's true? Now, again, self-defense is they're very reasonable. Sometimes violence is necessary. The question is, when do we justify that violence? Okay. And this is up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to think, right? Like, I'm not going to tell you how to think. Okay. Chet says, I understand why he's on Twitter, but like, why is he on Twitter? Maybe the better question is, why do people want him on Twitter? Girl, adapt. Girl, adapt. It's social media is communication. We need to adapt. Why do people want people on social media? Because it's the way of the world, girl. Adapt. We are not living in a world without internet anymore. It is very cool that our politicians are on social media. Let's fucking go. We need to adapt. Let's go, old people. Get on social media so we can talk to young people. We can talk to people around the world. Let's go. We need politicians. This is what we need. We do not need more people, ignoring the fact that social media is absolutely a place that harbors a lot of negativity and racism and homophobia. We need people to counter that on social media. Let's go. Let's see. Chat says, how was the violence under police protection when they were labeled as rioters and were arrested? Not arguing with Brittany, by the way. How was the violence under police protection when they were labeled as rioters and were arrested? How was the violence under police protection? Do you mean the Israeli side? Initially, everyone came out to defend Israelis. And then they came out to not defend them. So the world news, the president of the United States, Netanyahu, all these people smeared it as Israeli victims completely without taking into consideration how they first inspired the violence, right? Okay, let's keep going.
British football, for example, when British teams play abroad, the British government sends police details with them, not to protect the hooligans, but to restrain them and ensure that they're unable to do any damage. And so what we're talking about here in Amsterdam is not a clash between the hooligans of two opposing sides, but rather these Israeli thugs attacking people who, in principle, had nothing to do with the game, and then afterwards being confronted by their victims, with some violence included. And then you had kind of a power struggle within the Dutch elites. Geert Wilders, the far right, effectively the ruler of the Netherlands, seeking to undermine the government and prime minister he appointed in order to increase his power over them. That government seeking to retain its fiefdom, if you will. His coalition partners seeking to maintain their power. So they all began kind of outbidding each other and demonizing their own citizens and calling these clashes an anti-Semitic Jew hunt, which would only make sense if one could demonstrate that the victims of these clashes were not just supporters of the Israeli team or Israelis more generally, but also Dutch Jews and Dutch Jewish institutions.
Oh, hold on. Chet says the president shouldn't be able to fire off whatever thought he has in his head in the moment. I feel you, but I get you. He's not, for the record. Like, Biden isn't doing that, right? Trump might be doing that because that's Trump, but no other president has ever used X or Twitter or social media the way Trump has. Biden is not just firing off ideas. He's making a strategic statement in defense of Israel because they are an ally and this is political. Do not get it twisted, okay? Like, Trump is the only president who acts like a child on social media. Every other president has a team, has their allies in mind, and is making a political statement.
And Dutch Jewish properties. And there's no evidence that such attacks took place, or even that the Dutch Jewish community, which of course would have been understandably fearful given all these reports they were receiving about Jew hunt and anti-Semitic pogrom and so on. There's no evidence that they even asked for police protection on the night in question. And so, the government, Wilders, the mayor of Amsterdam, have all been going to increasing extremes of trying to compare what happened to the Nazi occupation, the German occupation of the.
So listen to this narrative, right? They are using this situation to compare it to the Nazis. And again, I know my channel is really calm most of the time. If I see any anti-Semitism, if I see anything that's too harshly political that could be mistaken for anti-Semitism, if I see anything, Islamophobic, if I see anything that I think, I'm going to put you on timeout and I'm going to expect you to get yourself in order. Okay. Now, chat says something very interesting. I understand what you're saying, but I just personally feel there are better topics suited to analyze whether one should or should go against their own morals to defend another moral. We are going to get into that with black women on Twitter for some reason being pro Starbucks. Because I'm going to talk about and make the statement that I've tried to make about billions of times. I don't think people have values. I think people move in fear. I don't think people know their values. I think they pretend to. Because when shit hits the fan and you're actually challenged, you don't adhere to those values. There are two ways to adhere to values: in living mode and in survival mode. And yes, context will change how you adhere to those values, right? Okay? But listen to me when I say this. It is very easy to say you have values until it becomes uncomfortable. You know this. It's very easy to say you have values and live in a world that's run under capitalism. So we're all contributing against those morals in so many ways, right? So we're not talking about, not understanding why things happen. Everything worked out in Amsterdam exactly how it was going to, right? Everything that happened in Amsterdam was exactly what was going to happen because humans are going to human. The question is, as individuals, how do we feel about this? How do we make different changes in our own lives? How do we move a little bit differently to the best of our ability while recognizing if you live in the modern world, especially if you're American, you are contributing to a lot of slave labor around the world. You're contributing to a lot of harm. So we're never going to be perfect within those values, right? I'm never asking for perfection. Okay? I'm never asking for perfection. Okay? Chat says, gotta be honest, I don't like the Rabani guy, the guy we're listening to, but I'm a Destiny fan, so I'm definitely biased against him. Yeah, Destiny's pro-genocide, so I don't give a fuck what Destiny thinks. Okay? Okay? Like, I don't give a fuck what anyone who's pro-genocide thinks. But thank you for your contribution, commenter. Okay, let's see. Ethics and morals. Okay, let's see. Hold on. I wanna... Chat says, because also as an African, staying true to our peaceful morals did not help us guard ourselves against colonization or slave trades. Political violence is a lot deeper than just staying true to ethics and morals. If we don't defend what we stand for when actively being threatened, we're also losing ourselves. I think as long as the thing you're fighting for is your own safety and freedom, not the policing of others, it shouldn't matter what you do to guard it. Okay. It shouldn't matter what you do to guard it. Yeah, everyone thinks that though. Everybody thinks that's what they're doing. Israel does, colonizers do. What do you think Israel and America did? They sat there and said, fuck you, fuck your people, fuck Africa, fuck the natives, fuck everybody, fuck the Palestinians, because our kids matter. They said, fuck all of you, because our team's gonna win. And they won, bitch, because they said, fuck you, because they don't give a all in the name of winning to protect their children. But the point is, your children bleed and cry the same as their children. So when we have these conversations, I'm not saying you shouldn't defend yourself. But remember, that's why the US threw that nuke on Japan. And that was bullshit. It was bullshit to send a nuke and slap innocent people, okay, with this nuclear weapon that killed them, all in the name of saving America. I would argue that wasn't self-defense. Chat says, how are colonizers protecting their own freedom and safety by invading others? That's a false ideology. They did it for profit. Yeah, profit to maintain their society. Colonizers are people with the means of thinking they are entitled to having their children's survive while yours die. It is to ensure their safety. That's what colonization is. Ensuring the safety of the people who benefit from the colonization. Same thought process. That's why I say politics is about winning and philosophy is about truth. Politics is about winning. So if you want to win and you want to protect your people, colonization is a great way to do it. Colonizing people is a great way to guarantee that your kids will benefit from living in a superpower, will benefit from, benefiting off the lives of people in different countries who help fund the products that they benefit from. Like, colonization is a great way to protect people who live in a colonizing country. So when we're having this conversation, I know it's hard to process, but I'm going to try my hardest to move people out of those bubbles that they're in and to recognize, like, everybody thinks they're right. Every single person thinks they have the answer. And I'm making the argument that you don't. That's why it's so hard to be a person, because we don't have those answers. But we benefit from the history. We benefit from the history. So remember, like, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think your perspective is valid. I just think it's not universally true. I'm saying it is just from that perspective. We are all operating within our perspectives. Now, let's keep going because there's something that happens in the video that I want to talk about from Netanyahu. He makes a statement.
Netherlands during the 1940s.
Let me play, Muin, for you what the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said. He's spoken with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump 3 times in the past few days, also commenting on what happened in Amsterdam on Thursday night.
Yesterday, we marked the Kristallnacht that happened 86 years ago on European soil. It was a brutal and violent attack against Jews, just because they were Jews. Unfortunately, in the last few days, we saw pictures that recall that night. In the streets of Amsterdam, anti-Semitic rioters attacked Jews, Israeli citizens, just because they were Jews. But there's one big difference between that night and our time. Today, we have a state.
Your response to the Israeli...
Okay. So what they did is this news came out. They played it very hard into this idea that once again, Jews were being targeted, just like before in Europe. Okay. A few things we have to disentangle. Okay. All human beings are equal. I believe this. All of our babies are equal. All of our mothers are equal. All of our humanity is equal. Okay. And targeting people because of inherent values, the way they were born, is unethical and immoral. Even though I think morals are subjective because we're creatures on a planet evolved over time, I think it's immoral. I also think it's unethical. It's bad for society. Okay. The reason people keep conflating Zionist with Jew is because the rhetoric out of Israel is also doing that. So anytime you criticize Zionism or even anti-Arab sentiment, it comes off anti-Semitic. Okay? So we have to have, he did it just now in this one little speech. He did it just now with this feud that happened in Amsterdam, right? He equated any kind of retaliation towards Israelis, whether they hit a taxi driver or not, whether they burned a Palestinian flag, whether they tore it down, whether they shouted, F the Arabs, no matter what the Israelis did, any retaliation on them is seen as anti-Semitic. And they play into that as hard as they can, conflate it with Israel, and then make any criticism of the Israeli government anti-Jewish. And this is why when Ethan says, I'm pro-Palestine, but also I'm not a Zionist, but also Zionism doesn't mean Jew, the own Israeli government is making that the rhetoric. So we have to be careful, okay? We have to be careful about how we're understanding this perspective. Again, we're like going to zoom out, okay? We're going to zoom out. So, okay, I'll give you an example. Ania says, wait, I got to rewind. Destiny is pro-genocide. How so? I missed that. Does he support Israel big time? He's a huge Israel supporter. He actually said, fuck it, genocide has to be the answer. He said it on a panel. And Destiny, he says a lot of things. I don't know what he really believes. Who knows? But the point is he is taking a political side. See, Destiny is like Trump in this way, where they will do anything it takes to win. They don't give a fuck as long as they win. That's why I don't think he has morals. He just has a desire to win. And the reason he says that genocide might be the answer, the reason he makes fun of and says Palestinians are faking their own deaths or even participating in dying on camera, so people feel bad for Palestinians. The fact that he laughs and says, well, these Palestinians asked for it. They asked to die. Look, they put themselves in this position. They should have just listened to Israel. It's because, one, he takes that side, but two, he wants to win. And it's true politically, if Israel wants to win, they would have to just genocide the Palestinians, the same way America did the natives. That is how you win a war. It's immoral. It's unethical. It's bad. It's not good. But if you're not going for the moral perspective, if you're just going for the political win the game perspective, sure. If you want the West, the investments in the West to move forward, then obviously you would be supportive of Israel. You would genocide the Palestinians. And you would say, it is what it is. It is what it is. Okay. Not cool, right? But that's how you want to win a war. So when you say, I want to win a war, it doesn't matter how. This is a part of that narrative. So again, I am saying I understand that perspective. This is why I don't do politics. Because politics is, I win no matter the cost of life. And I think that's unethical. I think it's bad for the world. Okay? So when you pull away from that and you talk about your individual values, you have to exhibit that in your real life. You have to exhibit it in your real life. Now, political violence is a part of the political landscape. But is it moral? Is it good for you as a person? Does it help your communities? I'm not saying to back down. I'm not saying to let the enemies win. I'm saying, are there methods that are better? And then to accept where human beings are in the story, right? So we have to decide these things. I'm open to the perspective of that political perspective, not being correct, but being what they justify it as. Same way we felt with Iraq. We're going to decimate Iraq. They have weapons of mass destruction. There were no weapons. We went into the wrong place. We did the wrong things. We were wrong. We were wrong. We were wrong. Okay? We were wrong. And that's the thing with Palestine. I guarantee you, we're going to be so wrong about this. We're already wrong about it, but we are going to look back on this and we are going to deeply look at this like another situation with the natives. We are participating in a genocide. It is wrong. It is wrong. It is not anti-American to say this is wrong. It is not anti-Jew to say this is wrong. Politically, though, it would make more sense for you to support America and Israel because ultimately it benefits your family the most if you're in the West, if you're in America. So you have to make a decision, right? And I think a lot of these political streamers, a lot of these people in politics, they just justify whatever it takes to win no matter what. They will cheat their way to winning if that's what it takes, okay? They'll do whatever it takes. And I'm saying I would rather we didn't. But let's zoom out, okay? Now, this coincides with another story that's happening, okay? I know it doesn't sound like it's related, but it actually is. And actually, it is technically related in a lot of ways. But if you haven't heard, Black women on TikTok, I have yet to see not Black women, I don't know why it's happening this way, are drinking Starbucks again. Right? And this is difficult, okay? Because not that I think that drinking Starbucks is going to like change a lot. I think it's the symbolism of it though. Like I don't have Starbucks here in Croatia and I've made an effort, you know, to keep it in mind that not to drink Starbucks in general. Okay. Even though I do love my Starbucks when I'm on a road trip, I have made a conscientious effort to like, remember, like maybe not. Okay. Now I have eaten at McDonald's while being in Croatia. So it's really not doing that much good. Right. Because I do like them chicken nuggets, but also it's not the idea that you're doing it. It's how these women are bragging about doing it. So when I say I don't think people really have values or morals, okay, when I say that, it's because when tempted, they don't actually make a decision that's consistent with their values. And let me prove to you why I believe this using these TikToks, okay? So I'm going to play a few for you just for you to get the vibe, okay? Me enjoying my Starbucks while your president does exactly what he told you he was going to do. Because Arab communities came out against Kamala Harris, Black women feel betrayed, right? Okay, look at this.
For everybody saying, oh my God, she wasn't a supporter of Palestine. She wasn't an advocate for us. She never really cared. I don't care. I boycotted for y'all. I empathized with y'all. I fought for y'all. Almost lost my page for y'all. I donated to y'all. I put families on my pages knowing good and well Black people behind me were telling me, girl, don't do this shit. They're going to turn on you ASAP. I was told that and I ignored it. I did lives for y'all. I shit on people. Every time I saw a Black person or a person of color with a Starbucks coffee, I went off on them in their comment. I was down with y'all like 4 flat tires in the hood, baby. But when it was time for y'all to meet us in the middle, y'all showed us that y'all didn't care about Black lives at all. Y'all showed us the only reason we mattered to y'all was for the sake of your people, but fuck ours. Y'all.
Okay, I just want to pause her right here. I want you to pay attention to the rhetoric. Your people, y'all, our people, your people, our people, your people, our people, your people. We are the same. And so when you have rhetoric of our people and your people, our people and your people, it's more like instead of values, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And this is why politics is bullshit. This is why philosophy is the only answer for humanity, because your politics is dividing you. And this is bullshit. It is not us versus them. We are not fighting for our people. We're fighting for humanity. Yes, exactly, Chesses. It's a bubble. It's all transactional. It is all transactional. And this is the bullshit of it all. And this is what's so funny to me. You don't have values. You have allegiances. You have, I'll shake your hand if you shake mine. You don't care about humanity. When I say even Nazis deserve healthcare, that's because it's a value. You deserve healthcare even if you're homophobic. You deserve healthcare even if you're a piece of shit. Because that is that's my values, bro. You don't deserve healthcare as long as you're on my side. You don't deserve healthcare. I don't think genociding homophobes is the answer. right? Now people will say, oh, fuck it, like punch a Nazi. I don't believe in violence. Even if you are a Nazi, I'm not going to punch you. Will I, again, enact self-defense? Yes. But self-defense is very specific, and don't bullshit with like, oh, it was self-defense. They were standing there in a Nazi uniform. That's not self-defense. That's escalation. Okay? And this isn't to say that the Nazi is valuable. It's to say that the humanity of the person is. And because I don't believe in prison systems, I believe in rehabilitation centers. Even if you're a horrible, horrible human because of the way that your biological experience went, I think you should be treated with dignity. All those people who came on my Lauren Chen video and said she's a traitor, she should rot in prison forever, I'm going to block you. I don't want anyone to rot in prison forever. I don't want anyone to rot. I want you to be treated with dignity, even if you don't treat others with dignity, but not at the expense of others. Okay? So we allow people to be treated with dignity, not at the expense of the greater good, but you cannot then go down to their level and torture people. They were putting hot iron rods up Palestinians' bottoms, the IDF. Violence carried out on Palestinians equal to Guantanamo Bay, and called themselves good people. I would still want those people to be treated with dignity because this is my values. My values. Values exist outside of whatever society does. Now, there's always you, the person, and then you, the community member. And you, the community member, it's hard because you're dealing with a lot of emotions. You know? You're dealing with a lot of people. And so you have to really think about what to do as a person. And if you don't want to be it, then just own your violence. Like, own it. Because again, what you're doing is you're going to sleep at night and saying, like, I'm not a violent person. I don't think I'm better than other people. Yes, you do. Not only do you think you're better than other people, but you think that if you don't get your way, then other people can't get it either. And I think this is immoral. But you can have the belief, right, that it's not. Okay, let's keep going.
Y'all wanted Trump in office. Y'all got Trump in office. Go talk to Trump. That is your man now. That's who you wanted in. You decided to actively protest against Kamala Harris. You went to her rallies, you marched, you made videos, you did speeches, you did everything you could, and you got people to actively sit out of this election in protest of Palestine and Kamala Harris. You did your job. You have your people now. Why are y'all mad that black folks are stepping out? Yes.
Okay, hold on. Chad says, I'm sorry, but this is why intersectionality cannot work. Intersectionality exists. It's not a matter of working. Like, intersectionality just exists. Okay? It's not a mode of working. It just is. Like, you said political interests inevitably clash, and if our foundation of a group organization is simply not being part of the majority, we'll keep losing. Okay, obviously you're in the political bubble. This isn't about winning and losing. This is a philosophy channel. This is about humanity. This is about your dignity. Okay? It's not about winning and losing. This isn't a political channel. Intersectionality just exists. It's an experience. It's an acknowledgement that we exist in different bubbles, in different ways, and different labels. They cross together. Okay? We are not talking about winning and losing. We're talking about humanity. If you keep talking about winning and losing, you're talking about politics. See how politics isn't about morals? It's about winning and losing. You've already lost the battle. Morally.
I said go back to Starbucks because why am I protesting? Why? I ain't had Starbucks since October of last year. I ain't had McDonald's. I ain't been to Hobby Lobby. I literally actively stayed out of everything. But not.
Okay, but I stay out of Hobby Lobby because they're anti-women's rights. And Starbucks, whether you like it or not, is absolutely contributing to anti-Black rhetoric and like different rhetoric. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. It depends on which version you're looking at. But like, these are companies under capitalism. If you want to spend your dollar how you want to do it. Like I said, I'm pro-Palestine, but I eat at McDonald's. You're not going to make me feel bad about it. But at the same time, it's because I don't think the harm reduction is as there. Like, I'm all about harm reduction, and I don't think it's harm reducing in the way people think it is. Not any more than me paying my tax dollars. But you acting like I only did this because you told me to, that's the problem. You should have done it for your own values. Like, you should have done it. And true, I say out of Hobby Lobby because it sucks compared to Michael's. Absolutely true. Every crafter knows Hobby Lobby is the worst. It's overpriced as shit. Okay? So again, when we're having these conversations, we have to Be honest with where we are coming from. And I don't think people can do that because the bubbles tell them it's not about values, it's about winning. The same way conservatives will, my own family members will say, please, if you care about us, if you care about our rights, vote Trump. How do you think that sounds when you're telling your gay kids, if you care about our rights, please vote Trump? The disconnect is there because they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about them. Everyone is just thinking about themselves, which I don't blame you. It's so human. You're not a bad person for thinking about yourself. But at the same time, you know, this is the world. Listen, again, if you're new to my channel, I'm not telling you to be perfect. I'm telling you you can't be. I'm breaking you the news. I'm telling you the bad news. You will never be perfect. You will always contribute to the harm around the world, and you can only ever harm reduce. You cannot eradicate harm unless all of civilization disappears. And even then, natural harm exists. We are nature, by the way. Humans are nature. But a tornado hitting a town is harm. An ant getting squished by your moving car is harm. You know, animals eating each other is a version of harm. You cannot harm reduce. I mean, you cannot harm eradicate. You cannot eradicate harm. You can only harm reduce. So I'm not here to tell you to be a perfect person. I will never be one, girl. And you're not going to make me feel bad about it. But I will try with every fiber of my body within reason to harm reduce. And harm reduction is very difficult because you first have to know why you're doing it. Why are you doing it? That's really hard to answer for people. They don't know why they're doing anything. They don't know why they're doing anything. They're just doing it because it's their biological experience, but they're not introspecting on why they're doing it. It just feels like it makes sense to them, which, by the way, all of civilization was built off of that, right? Like, it's not wrong for human beings to just be people. Like, humans will keep going. It doesn't matter. But the harm reduction can still occur if you want it to.
Not no more. No. Y'all showed me who y'all was. Y'all showed me what y'all stood for. Y'all showed me that y'all didn't give a shit about anybody but yourselves. Y'all were a one-issue party. And for that, I wish you the best. Because now y'all have to deal with Trump. Y'all wanted everybody to actively suffer? Okay. But let's see who suffers more.
Oh, that sounds really nice. Wow, let's see who suffers more. Chat says Black women are angry because they are experiencing a paradigm shift, that their compulsive willingness to come rescue everyone else does not guarantee the care of the world. Yeah, that's trauma. Black women have been traumatized for generations by having to do the emotional labor for everybody else at the expense of themselves. Stop doing that. Stop doing emotional labor for these shitty men. Stop doing emotional labor for your shitty kids. Stop doing emotional labor for your shitty self. Be introspective and break those generational curses, which is hard. But Black women coming to everyone's rescue is a generational curse. Break it. You're so much more than the person your community relies on only to take advantage of you. Stop letting people around you take advantage of you. It is not worth it. And I know you feel proud of yourself because at least you're doing something for the community. Your own community is taking advantage of you. All of our communities will, our parents will, our brothers will, our siblings will, which is why I do not do emotional labor for people who do not put a foot forward. Now, again, I'm willing to meet people where they are, always. But at the end of the day, okay, I do not do emotional labor for people. I'll give you an example. Oh my God. I put out a message saying, like, I don't delete individual comments. I just block you. If I don't like what you're saying, I will just block you. Okay. Homophobia, transphobia, racism, all that stuff. I'll just block you, girl. Period. If you see your comment disappear, it's YouTube. It's not me, girl. I don't delete single comments. I block your ass and you will never be welcome back. Period. Okay. So watch what you say in my chat. Now, there are exceptions, especially if you're a content creator. I'm usually willing to meet you because you have power, you have influence, okay? I'm willing to see if I can get you to switch sides a little bit, not to be like me, but to be a little bit more humane, harm reduce, okay? Maybe I'll make exceptions here and there for individuals who seem like they're really trying. I put out no homophobia in the chat, and this conservative person wrote a comment on my video saying, okay, obviously, like, I don't want to support homophobia or transphobia, and I don't, as a conservative, like, I think you have the right to be who you are, but I have to stand up against the indoctrination of our children, and I have to stand up for, you know, people in sports who like want men to do sports with them, and the women's side, obviously being homophobic and transphobic. And I was like, block. They think if they say it nicely, they're not being homophobic or transphobic. They think if they say it in like a nice like a structure sentence that's like, oh, look at my punctuation is on point, that it's not homophobia. It's like when I say, and I do believe this, I do think if you're not willing to be with a trans person, you're transphobic. right? I do believe that. But people are like, that's not transphobia. If you think, okay, that like, oh, I don't mind gay people, but I don't want to see them kissing, that's homophobia. Okay, so if people are like, that's not homophobia, with peace and love, what is it then? Because you wouldn't say that about straight couples. You don't sit there and say, I don't like watching straight couples kiss. Now, if you're actually anti-PDA, that's different. You'll have that for everybody. But when you single out a specific group, you only feel this way when they do it. That's the phobia part. Okay? So again, you might not think you're homophobic. You might disagree with me on that, but you are. And most of the world is. They just say it in a nice little sentence structure. And they think, oh. I'm like, okay. So again, be careful what you're saying, because you might not say what you think you're saying. Okay? Let's finish this.
I don't feel bad. I'm angry.
Anger is a valid emotion, but you shouldn't make moves off anger or fear. I highly recommend you get regulated. Anger is dysregulation. So make sure if you're dysregulated, which is valuable, it's telling you something, you're angry, that's so valid. Make sure you're not making decisions off the dysregulation. That's my recommendation. Okay? Do not make a decision when you're fearful. Do not make a decision when you're angry. Make a decision when you're centered, thoughtful, and wise. Meditate, make a decision.
I am mentally, emotionally, and spiritually checked out of y'all shit.
Fair. Don't do emotional labor for communities you don't want to, but then admit that your values were never with them in general. Once again, I'm not pro-Palestine for any other reason than I think it's immoral to genocide a community of people. I just want to make it clear from my perspective, there are politics going on. There are plenty of people in those Palestinian communities that maybe I wouldn't get along with, but at the end of the day, I don't think they deserve to be genocided. None of those people, those children, those men, I don't care if they're homophobic, I don't care if they're anything, genociding a whole population of people is wrong. It's unethical. Okay? It's inhumane. It's just disgusting. And to say that you're doing it to save your own children, like, sure. Okay? Sure. Maybe.
Y'all collectively told black people in this country that we didn't matter unless we supported y'all. Baby, I'm off for the next 4 years. I'm about to go out. I'm about to have a good time. I'm about to enjoy my life as much as I can and not worry about anybody else but my.
Okay. I actually think you should do this. I think you should do it without adding harm into the universe. You should go live your life. You should have the best motherfucking 4 years of your life. Okay, remember that at the end of this presidency, I will be 40 years old. At the end of Trump's presidency, I will be heading into my 40s. Okay, I want you to live your life, regardless of how destructive the world is. Live it, but live it with your values. You can live out your life the best way possible without also contributing harm to the Palestinians, without adding more harm into the universe than needed and necessary. Okay? So please remember that for the next 4 years, regardless of how destructive and horrible the world becomes, do not join it in becoming disgusting. Do not join it in becoming destructive. I don't care if the whole world starts to melt before your eyes. Please meditate and harm reduce. Or not. You know? Molly says, do you think there is healthy anger that you can make a decision based off of / genuine? No. But I think healthy anger can guide you to making a rational decision when you're regulated. Right? I think anger is, all emotions are neutral, but the context is valid because it's happening. Right? I don't think anger is not a healthy emotion. I think it's a dysregulated emotion, as is a lot of emotions, right? So be angry, but don't make a decision when you're angry, right? Make a decision when you're calm, okay? Make a decision when you're calm, right? If you're sad, don't make a decision when you're sad, okay? Don't make a decision when you're depressed. And when I say make a decision, I mean okay, let me rephrase. You're always going to have to make adult decisions regardless of your feelings, but try to be the most regulated as possible, right? A lot of us just need a moment to calm down before we make destructive and permanent decisions, like killing ourselves. Don't kill yourself when you're angry, depressed, or sad. Wait. Because you could be being pushed into a decision you don't even want to make, okay? Don't become so disheartened about the world that you destroy your life because the world isn't harm reducing. You are not the world, you exist outside of it. Okay? Chat says, I think Britt's talking about taking action. You don't have to act the moment you feel something. Exactly. Okay. Maiden says, I don't think anger inherently means you're dysregulated, but I think you can get into feedback loops with your anger that causes dysregulation. Sure. Absolutely. Right. I think it's hard because anger is so specific. Like, why are you angry? Even if you see an injustice in the world, your anger can be valid and maybe not dysregulated, but to make a decision off anger, I think is dysregulation. Because like, again, anger as a motivator is usually blinding. Usually, okay, there's 8 billion people on this planet, all having different experiences. Generally speaking, there's going to be a blinding aspect to it. So before you're taking action, before you decide which group you hate, before you decide to kill somebody, wait. Okay? So many of us make life-changing decisions in a moment of emotion that needs to be regulated first. So just wait. Give yourself, count down 50 seconds. Just wait. Okay? Emotions are valid. They're telling you something. Right? Kay says healthy anger would not be acting out of anger, or rather listening to what the anger is telling you. Yes, you need to be fixed and addressing that appropriately. Exactly. The anger happening isn't the problem. I think you making your decision off that is. Okay? I think that's true. Yeah. I think all of our emotions are telling us something. It doesn't mean that it's telling us something true, but often it is telling us something we're not aware of. Just wait a second and then make that decision. So much, I don't think people understand, like impulsivity is so contributing to the amount of violence in the world. Impulsivity is why we have things like trans panic. That's an impulsive decision. You're making an impulsive decision out of fear and anger, and you're killing people that are trans, that are gay, that are in a situation with you. Like, don't make that decision. Wait a second. Okay, impulsivity is really difficult. A lot of us struggle with impulsivity, right? Like you have this, like, it's like before you even think about it, you're doing it. Wait as much as you can. Tell yourself to wait. You won't be perfect at it, and you will make mistakes. You will do things impulsively. I have done things impulsively. I regret. I'm like, shit. I move faster. My body moved faster than I could even think, which is why you have to practice and practice introspection, practice waiting, practice. You have to allow the universe to send you opportunities to wait. Wait. That's what discipline is. It's waiting. That's what discipline is. So be disciplined if you would like, instead of not being. But bragging about not being disciplined, that's just a call for help. That's a cry for help, which is what this woman is doing. She's crying for help. And I hope she finds the help she needs, probably in a therapist's office.
And if you mad that I'm only focusing on my people, you did that shit. You made that shit possible. You let me know.
Okay, so this is another thing. I don't blame anyone. No one is the reason I do anything. We're going to talk about this with the 4B movement this week. I don't do anything because of what other people do. I do it because it makes sense for my journey. I don't do anything because of how you act towards me. I don't get to justify hurting you because you hurt me. Okay? I don't hurt people because they've hurt me. And that's the problem when we blame people. We're saying, you are why I'm this way. And I'm saying, there's a part of you that, yes, is a product of your environment. But can you imagine saying, I'm a grown adult, I'm sensible, I'm smart, I'm introspective, and then saying, well, I only did it because they did it to me. I think we learned this lesson in kindergarten, right? Just because people hurt you doesn't mean you have to hurt them back. Don't blame people for your bad attitude, but examine how you have been impacted by your environment to have a bad attitude, then change it.
That focusing on y'all was a detriment to mine. You actively shown that shit. I can't focus on y'all no more. I got to focus on my people only.
Sure.
If you mad about that.
Just a reminder that Starbucks is anti-Black Lives Matter and has banned people from wearing their merch. And you might just want to take that into consideration when you buy that Starbucks.
Mad at yourself, not anybody else. For everybody.
Okay, next.
And let me say this. I cried all yesterday, but today I woke up and got some Starbucks. Fuck y'all. We're done. For the next 4 years, we don't give a fuck about anybody else's problem. Cheers, ladies. And let me say this.
Going back to Starbucks to get your favorite drink, to get your favorite holiday.
Okay, so here's another perspective
Going back to Starbucks to get your favorite drink, to get your favorite holiday cups, honestly, as a form of personal protest, is really lazy, and it's not the take that you think it is. What it actually is very ignorant. Election aside, we already know that Starbucks as a corporation does not mess with Black people. We don't even have to second guess or think or idealize. We know it already. We saw how Starbucks was operating during the BLM movement, right? We saw that they were laying off a lot of their employees for even wearing a BLM pin. They could care less about Black communities in general. Now, bringing it back to the election, this is someone that comes from a family of immigrants, voted for Kamala, and so did the rest of my family, who is Black and is Muslim. It's unacceptable. I don't want folks to ever forget that intersectionality actually exists. Let's not forget that there are Black Muslims, a majority of whom voted for Kamala as well. I understand that you want to be upset at the whites and the Arabs who didn't vote for Kamala. That is understood. But to say that your own personal form of protest is to just forget everything else, it's lazy. The Palestinians don't even have the right to vote. They have absolutely no rights in their own country, their own birthland. The ones who are actually being bombed day in and day out, who are actively living within a genocide, they don't have anything to do with this goddamn election. They do not. Not to also mention, y'all, Black Palestinians exist. When we ignore their plight, we ignore everything else. It's not right. It's not quirky. Islamophobia will never be cute. It'll never be funny. None of it. Let's stop while we're ahead. And a lot of y'all are influencers who have a ton of followers, and you guys are having comments just laughing. You're having a party with them. Do fucking better, for real.
Okay, chat says, how did they decide Kamala lost the vote because of pro-Palestinian voters? Because they can't do math? Like, because no one's mathing. Everyone's just blaming everybody. Stop blaming everybody. Accept that this is where humanity is. You haven't accepted that this is where humanity is. But like, they absolutely did not lose the vote for Kamala. Even if they had all voted for her, she still would have lost. Like, that's the point. Is that you're mad at people for voting within their values. I will never get mad at you for voting within your values. Okay, I'm not mad at any of the Arab communities that didn't vote for Kamala Harris. I know why you didn't do it. I get it. I'm 100% with you. I understand why someone voted, wrote somebody in. I understand why you voted third party. I understand. As long as it was within your values, I value that. I value that more than people who pretend to have values just to piss on them the moment it doesn't go their way. They were never your values. You were just doing it to win. And if your game is winning, like, we are not playing the same game. We're not playing the same game. And that's the difference. Okay, next video.
I got a question. Why do y'all expect Black people to always take the high road? Like, no, for real, that is an actual question.
So this is the same girl from earlier. I just wanted this particular sentence here. Why do you expect Black people to always take the high road? I want to comment on this. Taking the high road does not mean doing the right thing when no one else is doing it, though I think that's the way people have always thought about it. It is that. Okay, taking the high road was supposed to mean doing the right thing even if nobody is doing it, right? That kind of, but what it really has become is people think taking the high road is making the decision that a good person makes at the expense of yourself. Like, taking the high road doesn't mean fucking yourself over. So let's eradicate taking the high road from our vocabulary, because even political commentators like Destiny said that when he laughed at the firefighter who died because of Trump and because of the assassination. He was saying, like, well, fuck them. They shouldn't have been there. One less voter for Trump, I guess. Like, he's like, I'm going to laugh at my viewers for being there. Like, and he was like, why do I have to take the high road when conservatives don't? Because you're fake. Like, this is fake values. You should do what's good within your values regardless of the temptation to do otherwise. If it feels fake to you to be, I don't know, dignified in your answer, then it's not your values. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you laugh when people die, like, it was never your value to care about people dying. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, for me, values exist whether the whole world is imploding or not. And it's not about being perfect. Again, you're never going to be perfectly within your values. But when given opportunity, so this is an opportunity. And so their values were never pro-Palestinian. Because when it became inconvenient, they didn't like it. Okay? So again, I don't want people to think like taking the high road or being the bigger person is about being fake. You should be doing it because it's within your values. And I think people just don't understand. They don't understand what it means to have values. They genuinely don't, because when temptation knocks, you guys fall for it every time. And that's what's so ironic about humans, right? Chat says taking the high road means refusing to act outside of your values because of the temptation or pressure from others. That's what it should mean. But they always say taking the high road. So in this instance, she goes, why do we have to take the high road? What do you mean? Do you mean, why do you have to live within your values? Bro, don't. You don't have to. Just say it's not your values. Just say it's not your values. But they can't because they want to go to bed at night thinking they have the better values. They want to sit on their moral high ground and say they have the better values. Everyone has the values that they think are right. I don't know. You know what I mean? That's what we have. It's people who just think they're right. The question is, how right are you? You're probably right in some way, but how are you right? Right?
Why do y'all always expect us to take the high road? I've gotten so many death threats in the past couple of days because I told my people to say, fuck it. We're no longer doing anything for anybody else. We're only focusing on black people in America. Go get your Starbucks. Go get your McDonald's. And was it petty? Yes. But at that time, my people were down and out and depressed and crying and felt helpless. And we needed a laugh. We needed a ride.
At the expense of dying Palestinians, question mark?
We needed something to make us feel good. And if you're mad about that, that is your problem. We said we're no longer supporting y'all. We never.
Fuck the Palestinians, I guess, huh? Fuck them dead kids, I guess. Because we needed to laugh because we lost an election. Well, they're losing their lives. Their literal lives. Like, black people are losing their lives in America too. But I don't know how taking a stance on the bodies of Palestinians is much better. You know? But you do you. A bubble's gonna bubble, right? Her perspective feels very real and justified, which is fair. I just can't agree with it. I don't think it's good.
Said we wished any ill will against your people. That is y'all fight. That is something y'all need to handle. Why are y'all so mad that black people pulled out? What you need to be focusing on is how you're going to save your people by yourself.
Your people, my people, their people. I think you exist outside of your skin color. So let's bring back my chart that I made. Let's bring back the chart, y'all. Go into the chart that I made. I want to show you my chart. Okay. Here's the chart. Levels of perception. So right now, she's in society, individual as perceived by. So she's in a part of society, but the individual is blackness, and she's being perceived as my people. So my people means she doesn't exist outside of her blackness, but you do, right? The world will convince you don't because they want to be able to be racist against you. But like, you exist. If you're religious, you believe in a soul. A soul doesn't have color. Get it together. Religious people that believe in a soul but are racist, you make no sense. You think your soul has a race? You think your soul has a gender? These things don't exist, okay? So when you're looking at it, on the macro, we're just like a floating biological species floating on a planet through space. Then we formed over, all these years to form societies. And within those societies, there's racism and homophobia and transphobia and blackness and whiteness and all these other constructs. Then these individuals, single human as perceived by others. So she only sees herself as perceived by others. But if you go down and have a better relationship with yourself, your specific consciousness, who is she outside of her blackness? But that's really hard to say, right? Because when you're examining yourself outside of the thing that people have told you your whole life matters more than anything, it's really hard to have this conversation. But it's really important to recognize you're both at the same time. You are both your skin color and not your skin color. You're both your gender and not your gender. And depending on the level you're examining it, that's why perception changes. So on the macro, like, you don't even exist, my bros. If you zoom out into the universe, you don't even exist. I showed my in-laws a photo yesterday. We saw them yesterday. It was family day yesterday, which is part of why I ran out of spoons to do the podcast. I showed my in-laws a picture of what just looked like a view from our apartment. And they're like, oh, that's nice. And I was like, wait. And I zoomed in, and there was my partner in a crowd of people. And I was like, look, you wouldn't even know he was there. If you zoomed in or zoomed out, you can't even perceive him. But he's there. You zoom in, and there he is. And that was what was so funny about that picture. You think you know what you're looking at until you zoom into the details. And then you realize, oh, there's like all these people with all these lives and all these like beliefs. That is us. When you zoom out into the universe, we are not perceivable. We do not exist. And then when you zoom into the details of our lives, we exist with so much nuance and so much gray. So much nuance and so much gray. So be careful of what your eyes are capable of seeing because they're limited. Be careful of your ears because they're limited in what they can hear. And be careful of your mouth because it is the most limited part of how you express yourself. And girl, let me tell you, I put my foot in my mouth all the time. Okay? So when we're having conversations about perception, we have to acknowledge how we're perceiving ourselves. So on the macro, we're all valuable to this planet. We're all valuable to the universe. We are the universe. Then we zoom into societies and we start using words like my people and your people. Okay? And then more than that, we start to only know ourselves through those constructs, which is so limiting. So even when we're in pain, we can't be in pain as singular people. We must be in pain as a people, which is fine. But you are all of them at once. You are all of these things at the same time, except the last one. The last one takes a level of introspection that I think most people are missing. And anyone can have this level of introspection with themselves. It doesn't matter what level you are, right? It's just a person who has a deep relationship with themselves. That could look like anybody, right? That could be anybody, any level of introspection. As long as you're having a relationship with yourself, do you know who you are when you're alone? What are your values, right? Chad says, are the majority of people zoomed in on the individual level? I think I actually think most people, well, I would say most people are actually zoomed in on the society level and then the individual level, but I actually think most people are zoomed on the society level. So society is thinking about of our larger bubbles. Most people perceive themselves through race, religion, gender, through society's constructs. Okay. And then they individualize that through how society perceives them. But a lot of people don't know, right, who you are. They just know what group you're a part of. Most people don't even know who they are. They know who they are in the group, and then maybe they know who they are as the individual, but that's kind of harder, especially with the way she's talking right now, right? My people, my people. What about you? You. I want to know how you think about things. Now, that would be her individual level. But then even more than that, I would love to know who she is when she's alone in her apartment. Who are you when you're alone in your own home? You're not hurting anybody. Maybe you're enjoying some food. Maybe you're watching some anime. Maybe you're watching a streamer. You're just at home. Maybe nothing's on. Maybe it's silent. Maybe we're silent and maybe we're just sitting. Who are you? Who is this person? What is this body? What is your relationship with self? Are you just your brain? Are you your body? Do you have a soul? How do you even exist? How do you even come to be here? Right? When we're having these conversations, we're having different relationships with perception. That's what a bubble is. It's a perception. And so her bubble, let me take this off. Her bubble isn't invalid. It's not that it doesn't exist, but it is a choice whether or not you want to pop the bubble or not. When you have the right tools to pop it. Not everybody has the tools, right? And most people only have the tools society gives them, which is limited. Right? So she's not a bad person, in my view. I don't think most people are bad. I think most people are doing what they think is right within their limitations. And she is doing what she thinks is right. I just think it's counterintuitive. I don't think it's harm reducing. I think it's actually contributing to more harm in the long run. But she can do what she thinks is right. I just think she's doing it dysregulated. And if she was more regulated, I wonder if she'd come up with a better solution. And don't get it wrong that the internet does keep you dysregulated. The internet does not have your best interest in mind when they want you to act out of their own dysregulation. You have to be very careful. You have to be very careful about that, right? Chat says, Hayda says, interesting that most people are zoomed in on society's level when we're all so lonely and atomized. You know, the irony of the loneliness epidemic is because it's a societal issue. But the individual, if they popped that bubble and became more introspective with themselves, would be less lonely. It's so interesting, huh? When we're having these conversations. So again, this channel, I know it's difficult for people to digest. If you're in an angry state of mind, it might be frustrating. I totally get it. I just want you to know, I do believe you think you're doing good. I just wonder if we could harm reduce in a better way, right? Okay, so I'm going to leave her alone because I know she's in a lot of pain. I just wanted to comment on that one section of her video. Let's go on to a different person's perspective.
I don't know, you guys. The Starbucks is extra delicious, extra good today. Like, super yum. I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, it's red cup season. Make sure you go get your Starbucks. It's so good.
So, okay, this is equal to, if people haven't realized it yet, this is a dog whistle. That's basically what that is, right? Like, we're dog whistling, fuck the Palestinians. That's what you're doing. You're saying, fuck Arabs. You're saying, fuck Arabs. It is a dog whistle. And the irony is it's coming from other hurt communities. And that's why hurt people. Because we don't have values, we have ideas. And we get mad when these ideas can't happen our way. So when they say, like, I don't know why Starbucks is so good today for some reason, it's not that buying Starbucks is actually going to help or hinder the Palestinian cause. It's the fact that you're signaling. So the reason I'm not buying Starbucks in that sense, one, it's not available to me, but I don't want to signal that necessarily to my audience. I don't think it matters in the scheme of things to buy Starbucks or not, but you're signaling. It's like Hassan drinking Coke or whatever, and people are like, why are you drinking Coke? This doesn't matter. What matters is what you're signaling. You're signaling something. And right now you're signaling, fuck the Palestinians. And that's not something I want to signal. I want to make sure that I'm not signaling, fuck the Palestinians. At all costs, I want to make sure that I'm conscientious of the fact that that's not what I want to signal. And I don't know if she realizes that. I don't know if any of these women realize, hey, you're kind of saying like, fuck you. You're being genocided. Fuck you. Like, I don't know if you know that's what you're saying. Like, that's a problem. I don't know if they realize this or if they are in just so much pain. They can't, they don't get it. Which is, again, what a human experience, a universal human experience is when we're in so much pain as a collective, we struggle to see other people's pain, which is, I understand. And I don't want to compare suffering. I don't like that, right? I don't like it because I think it's the wrong way to go about things. So I can meet her where she is and say, okay, I know you're suffering, but as your friend, don't post this because you're signaling the wrong thing. Right? Okay. Chat says, I understand. Listen, you guys are talking about my whiteness or not. I'm a white skinned person. Okay. West Asian represent, but I'm a white skinned person. You said, however, she isn't black. And as a black woman, I would not tell an Indian, white, or a Syrian woman how to feel. I'm not telling you how to feel because you're black. I'm not telling any of these women how to feel as a black woman. I'm telling them how they should feel as people. People. And I'm not even telling you how you should feel. I'm just pointing out what I'm observing. You can feel how you want to feel, right? Like, feel your feelings, girl. But I don't think it's reasonable and I don't think it's kind. But not because you're black. You are more than your blackness. Your blackness is under subjugation because of people's perception of your blackness. And I am trying to say that you are more than your blackness and not in a uncentrist, weird liberal way because your color matters. People are going to persecute you for that color. But because you literally exist outside of it. Desiring the genocide of the Palestinians is not okay whether it comes from a black person or a white person. Okay? Period. Joking about the Palestinians being genocided, being happy they're being genocided, contributing to their genocide in any capacity isn't the right answer. And what this does is it humanizes everybody. If black people can't meet people where they're at, how do you expect white people to do it? We think minority communities are smarter, they have more introspective tools, but I think they fall short the same way anyone else does in a privileged position. You're Americans drinking Starbucks. What the fuck do you care about Palestinians who have no food or water? Of course you don't. You have the privilege to not care about them. Which is the beautiful thing about being part of a superpower. You can just ignore it. And so black people can continue, as they should, fighting for their own communities, as they should, uplifting their own people, but to remember that what a privileged position to have as a black American who can ignore the plight of the Palestinians once it doesn't go your way. And that is the irony. All Americans are privileged. Even black Americans, compared to the rest of the world. Chat says they don't desire the genocide of the Palestinians. They've decided to be indifferent, which is different. Sure, but the way they're going about campaigning this is doing the opposite. You can say it's indifference, but it's not when you're bragging about signaling to the group that you don't care about the Palestinians. Because conservatives are using this against people. Like, they're not acting indifferently. Indifferently would be not talking. Indifference would be no longer commenting. But they are making it clear, fuck the Palestinians. They are making it clear, fuck the Arabs. They're literally saying, fuck you. That is not indifference. Okay? Saying fuck you is not indifference. Okay? Acting petty and spiteful is not indifference. So if they were you know what I'm saying? Like, that is not what indifference is, guys. Okay, next TikTok.
I can only imagine.
Okay, this is the other side's opinion, I believe.
the level of disillusionment that you would feel after such a disappointing election result. And I'm sure that would lead to a broader sense of fatigue and frustration, okay? Like literally, I live in Australia, okay? And we were all disappointed as well. And I'm sure that frustration would be intensified as a Black American woman because they were the key group that was able to come together to try and stop that orange man from getting into office. And as I'm sure you guys have seen, there's been a lot of videos about ending their Starbucks boycott because they're putting themselves first and they're like reallocating their energy towards issues which directly affect them. And you know what? I'm not even fully against the idea that solidarity should be transactional. I think a key part of solidarity is mutual support, but your morals shouldn't be conditional and transactional. And
exactly, your morals are not transactional. They are not. That's the point. I agree with her. That's the point. Is if you're doing a political thing where you guys are coming together and building bridges, sure, transactional. But if you're doing a moral thing, then they're not. That's not transactional.
a lot of your guys' videos, I think a key part of solidarity is mutual support. But your morals shouldn't be conditional and transactional. And a lot of your guys' videos, I'm so sorry, they're showing a gross level of individualism. And it's actually weird to see. And let's be real, the people making these videos boasting about getting their overpriced, gross Starbucks coffee as a way to try and dunk on Palestinians, they never cared, okay? No matter how much they try to pretend that they were doing some Avengers level fighting for the Palestinian movement, they were not. Because that's why they're in the comment sections kikiing, ha-haing with people that are saying, oh, we were never boycotting to begin with, ha, I was there last week, ha. And I know that it's misplaced anger, but damn, you need to take a second and think about what you're saying and place the anger correctly. Because guys, I've seen so many disgusting videos. Like I saw a video of this lady talking about, oh, when Gaza gets turned into a hotel strip with a casino. Do you hear yourselves? Do you know who you sound like? Do you know who said something along those lines? Yeah. And I just don't get why these people are positioning themselves as these really strong previous supporters of the Palestinian cause who have just now been forced to abandon their support. They've been left no other choice. Be so for real. Your praxis didn't go any deeper than refraining from a weekly iced caramel macchiato. If that. Like, stop betraying morals out of anger.
I love this. I agree 100% with this. I think that's exactly the issue that we're finding is that people think they have morals. They think they have values. But when shit gets hard, you abandon those values, right? Now, in the most nuanced way, I do think that context allows you to engage in behavior you wouldn't engage with if you were in a privileged position. Like if you're stealing food because you're hungry, like I get that. If you don't have money, I get it. But if you're Rudy Giuliani or Armie Hammer begging for money on the internet from people because you don't have money anymore when you're literally in the most privileged position and there's no way you don't have money, that's bullshit. That's bullshit, right? Like that's somebody that I'm going to be like, hey, no stealing food at the supermarket, Rudy Giuliani. I know you have money. You can't steal things because you want to, okay? If you take food because you're genuinely starving, I understand this. Okay, but let's also get you in a position where our people don't have to steal, right? Yes, chat says, are they doing that? Armie Hammer and Rudy Giuliani recently both came out saying they don't have any money and they need food fan donations because Rudy Giuliani just lost his court case against women he accused of, I think it was voter fraud. And now he had to pay them like millions of dollars. And then Armie Hammer, of course, as we've covered this, Armie Hammer, of course, just acted like a despicable human being and was held accountable. And now he's mad about it, you know? So again, like I am okay meeting people where they are, but of course we want to get society to a point where they don't have to steal food, right? If I'm at the supermarket and I see someone stealing diapers, like, I didn't see nothing. I'm blind and deaf. Actually, I literally don't even speak the language to communicate with you, honestly. Like, my tongue's cut out of my mouth. I can't even tell you what I saw. Not that I saw anything, but I don't know. But if I saw somebody stealing, not diapers, you know, something else, then maybe I'd be like, hey, you can't steal that, bro. Like, you can't steal to steal, okay? But if I see you stealing diapers, like, fuck. You know what I mean? Like, you must be in a really shit position to have to steal diapers, you know? So again, when we're having conversations, it's like I'm willing to look at people with the nuance and the context of their situation. But I also want to uplift the poorest amongst us, the ones who are struggling the most. I want to uplift them into options where they don't have to steal. And that starts with like a supportive government, a supportive community. And it acknowledges that certain people in our communities may not uphold the best values. But it's not because of their race or their money. Obviously, look at Rudy Giuliani. He's a piece of shit. Okay, being rich and white didn't matter. You're still a piece of shit. Okay, so and he deserves his humanity. Everybody deserves their humanity. Everyone's a person. Look, everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. But also we need to hold people accountable to either our ethics as a society or individual morals based off of the individual. So I always try to hold people accountable to their own values and ethics. And then I try to interact with people based off of mine, right? And so there's a dilemma here where people don't know how to do that because they really just think like so black and white. So again, Black women have a right to be angry. Palestinians have a right to be angry. Everybody has the right to be angry. But do not make life-changing decisions when you're angry, because I think often it does add more harm than good. And we want to harm reduce. You don't have to, by the way. You don't have to listen to me. We're all going to die in about 70 years, bitch. None of us drinking our Starbucks or eating our McDonald's or sitting here on this stream are going to be alive in 70 years. So you do what you want to do. Now, how do we zoom out even more? Here's my honest advice. Here's what I'll say to this. What if we zoom out altogether? Here's how I live my life. You don't have to do this. This is how I live my life. I wake up every day and I do what has to get done. And I do my best to harm reduce to the best of my ability, whether it's treating myself with dignity or people around me. And then I go to sleep and I hope I do it again tomorrow. I'm not perfect. I bought cashew butter the other day. Felt like a piece of shit. Talked to my partner about it. We've kind of made a decision to probably not buy it again, but it's really difficult because damn, cashew butter be good, but it's really on the backs of a lot of people that are suffering in order to make this cashew butter. So it's like, okay, how many items in our house can we have that were ethically or unethically sourced? Okay, I even started Googling, like, can cashew butter be ethically sourced? And I've been like, we sat there Googling on the couch, like, how do we do this? Is this an item we really need in our life? It's not going to matter. No one's going to care that one family chose not to eat cashew butter, but it's about our own values. Our own values. Is this what I want to do? Is this how I want to harm reduce? I am never asking you to be perfect. I am never asking you to be perfect. Never asking you to be perfect. I'm just asking you to make a decision if you want to harm reduce in one or two ways throughout your life. Just today, maybe instead of this, I'm going to do this. Like, I don't litter. That's like a really easy for me way to harm reduce. I really hate litter. I think littering is just like the worst way to bring down a community. Okay? Right? Maiden says not to be the communist in the chat, but there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. No, there's not. But that doesn't mean you can't participate in harm reduction. That's what I'm trying to say. None of us can exist in the world and not cause harm. But you guys cause harm to the environment, to animals, to humans. It doesn't matter if capitalism existed or not. Not only is there no ethical consumption under capitalism, there is no ethical way for human beings to exist on the planet and have a modern life. Because we impact the earth. We impact the nature around us. We impact ourselves. I would argue, I would take it so far as to say, even if capitalism wasn't the structure we lived under, you wouldn't be able to do it. I truly believe that all human beings existing is a part of ruthless nature, much like a tornado. Humans are the tornado of a species. We come in, we wreck everything, we decide like, oh, that was cool, and then we do it again. All humans of all groups, colonizers and victims of colonization. We are all contributors. All of us do it. Because that's what we are as a species. That's who we are as a species. Now, do people have more introspective relationships with their biological experience? Yeah. But that takes time and effort, and that's why we go meditate in the mountains away from civilization, because civilization is obviously not interested in doing that. That's why you go meditate in the mountains, because civilization is not interested in doing it as a whole. So remember, the you can always be more introspective than the us. But the us on a whole is more introspective. We talked about this in the VC the other day. We had a discussion about whether or not people are bad or good. On the macro, I really think people are good. I do. But if you zoom in, I think people are bad. But I mean that with no prescription made. I just think human beings are sloppy. We're really messy. We have dreams and hopes at the expense of other people, right? Like, I don't think we're that good, but I don't think we're that bad. And I think we're both things at once. If you zoom out, we're just like any other biological organism on the earth existing. But I think zoomed in, like, we're pretty flawed. Like, we're pretty flawed. But also, what does it mean to be flawed when you're nature itself? Okay? But I don't think bad or good are prescriptions of anything. I don't think it means anything. I don't think you should go home and be like, I'm a bad person. Look, if you're mad about being a bad person, then do better tomorrow. But beating yourself up for being a bad person also makes no sense. How is that harm reduction? Do better. Like, just introspect, which sounds funny. Introspect, which is hard. Right? I think people are good in the same way a bear is good. But is it bad when it kills your whole family? Yeah, that's pretty devastating. But it's a bear. And that's how human beings are. Human beings are a part of nature, and they will violently murder your family in the name of their freedom. And who can blame them for being so human? I don't blame anyone for being a person, but I would offer you a suggestion. You can be a different type of human. You can be a different kind of human. And when given the opportunity to be a different kind of human, I think you should take it. One more video on this subject that I think would be cool to watch, suggested by the Discord, and mentions the word bubble. This is Gabor Mate, and I think he says it really poetically here. So let's listen to him. Okay?
I'll go back to your lecture, and you talked about compassion of recognition, compassion of understanding.
Compassion, by definition, means to suffer with. To suffer with. It's very hard for people to be compassionate. To suffer with.
Understanding, compassion of truth. We are approaching October 7th.
Yeah.
When the horrible massacre happened in Israel.
Yeah.
Where young children were murdered, burned, babies in ovens.
That didn't happen. There were no babies in ovens.
Oh, yes, they were.
No, there weren't. That's been refuted even by the Israelis. Let's agree on what we do agree on, okay? A horrible massacre happened. People were killed in their homes. Civilians
were killed, were raped.
There's been no evidence of mass deliberate rapes. I'll let you finish your question.
How
Go
do
ahead.
I find compassion for these people?
Which people?
The animals that did that.
The animals that did that. How do we have compassion for these animals? I've been to Palestine. 2.5 years ago, I went there to work with Palestinian women who've been tortured in Israeli jails, which has been documented by Israeli Physicians for Human Rights, by B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights organization, by United Nations and others. Nobody ever talks about the thousands of Palestinians. Did you know that 2 Palestinian doctors were tortured to death recently by Israel? Doctors tortured to death. History did not begin on October the 7th. In Canada, 4 years ago, there was a poll. Now, thousands of children died in those schools. People were tortured, raped, all kinds of stuff. 70% of Canadians knew nothing or little about the residential schools. To what happened to indigenous people. If you do a poll in the United States, until very few years ago and even now, most people will know nothing about what happened to the indigenous people here. Nothing. The genocide, the torture, the rape, the starvation. They know nothing about it. And in some states in the United States, it's illegal to even to teach it in the schools. Do you think the average Jew knows anything about the indigenous people of Palestine? These animals that you talk about, you know, the first massacre of Palestinians in Gaza didn't happen last year. Didn't even happen 4 or 5 years ago when they killed hundreds of children with their bombs. It happened in 1956. In 1956, they massacred 200 civilians. Do you know about it? You've never heard of it. Of course you haven't heard of it. That's why you can call them animals. Otherwise, you'd see them like human beings like the rest of us. That place where we call other people animals, if you want to live there, that's your choice. I don't want to live there. I want to understand people. I want to understand what happened to them. I want to know why they behaved the way they behaved. I'm not into justifying taking civilian hostages. I said that was unjustifiable. Why you didn't hear me, I don't know. I said there were massacres that shouldn't have happened. Why you didn't hear me, I don't know. You know why you didn't hear me? Because you live in a bubble, that's why.
Okay? We all live in bubbles. This is why I use bubble theory constantly. We've all been saying it for years. You live in a bubble. You live in a bubble. And my little neurodivergent brain during COVID was like, yeah, we all live in bubbles. Wait, why aren't we paying attention to that? Don't you think that's interesting? That we all live in bubbles? But people go, I don't live in a bubble. You live in a bubble. No, no. We all live in bubbles. And people will come on my channel and goes, Brittany, you say you don't live in a bubble, but you live in a bubble. Bitch, I'm the first one to say I live in a bubble. I'm the first one to say I live in a bubble. I know. We all live in bubbles. This was so hard. Like, this changed my whole life to realize, like, okay, no, seriously, for real, we all live in bubbles. And that means, like, the way we perceive information is so subjective to that perception. It is so dictated by the perception, which is why everyone's suffering is valid. Everyone's babies cry the same and die the same. All of us want to live and die in dignity, but yet what does that mean? Like, we all live under a perception. I am never going to say that I'm always right. I'm probably always wrong. But so are you. To have the arrogance and ego to say that I know what is right and I know what is wrong is to say you know something about humanity that is still a mystery to all of us on a whole. We can't even be compassionate to suffer with. Now, does that mean you always have to do the emotional labor for people? No. Does that mean you always have to risk your life for people? No. Does that mean? No. It just is what it is. And then you can decide what to do with it. When I say humans are going to human, people think that's me saying like, oh, humans are going to human. Can't do anything about it. No. Humans are going to human, accept it, and then do something about it. But do something about it knowing that you are also a human who is just humaning. You're not perfect. You will make mistakes. But more than that, you can have so many different ways of examining yourself in the world. They're all based off that level of perception, which is why you have to examine who am I when it comes to the universe? Who am I in society? Who am I as a perceived individual? And who am I as a specific consciousness? Who am I? What does even I mean? What does it mean to be an I? What is this? Does this thing matter so fucking much? Could this thing matter so fucking much that people have to tell me who I am on this thing? What is this thing? What is so important about this stupid fucking meat suit that I'm wearing? What is so fucking important about it? Apparently everything. Apparently everything. I just don't think it can matter this much. And I think it's a choice that we tell ourselves that it does. I think it's a choice that we tell ourselves this thing matters that none of us had a say in. This thing that none of us picked or chose, it means and has to tell us so much about a person. Just a reminder that I am deconstructing my misandry all of the time because in my heart of hearts, I do not believe men are inherently bad. I do think society and patriarchy convinces them to be less introspective, convinces them to always think they're right, and convinces them to always be... Keep in mind that every time a man reviews fake intellectuals, it's always men on stage. Keep in mind that if you're in the atheist bubbles or debate bubbles, or if you're in the philosophy bubbles, these are men arguing with each other about who the hell is the smartest when it comes to human nature. So when we talk about like pseudo-intellectuals, when we talk about human beings, it's men, because men have been formed in society with the burden of being right, instead of the gift of being humble. Humility was given to women, but in sort of a fucked up way, because like you're second-class citizens. But it wasn't given to men in a fucked up way because they were burdened with this idea that they had to be right about everything, when nobody was ever meant to be right about everything. And nobody should have ever been treated like a second-class citizen. So when we're having conversations about what is important, who are we, what are we doing, make sure that you can wake up and go to sleep every day in peace and in joy. And I promise you, you will feel this way if you move within your values. If you move within your values, you will be less angry and more reasonably attuned to your emotions when necessary. I get angry. Believe me, I get angry. You've seen me get angry. I also get angry and vent to my partner, and they like allow me to like get my feelings out because they know that ultimately when I'm angry at the injustice, and I have not accepted and will not accept in that moment, human beings are going to human. And then when I'm regulated and I recognize that my anger, though justified in terms of my experience, is not reasonable in terms of my message. And my message is that anger, though justified, though your feelings are justified, your fear is justified. Sometimes it is also the reason why we continue all of the bad in the world. because we use that to justify why we have to destroy these people over here. Look at these animals who I'm so afraid of. They burn babies in ovens. We have to kill them. My anger justifies it. My fear tells me I have to kill them before they kill me. We had to bomb Japan because if we didn't, they would have come after us. I did end the war. But what does that even mean? Because again, everything you do because you think it's the right thing to do. And that should be scary to you. But it should also be relieving that everyone's thinking the same thing. So don't move off the fear of like everyone thinks they're right. Why do they think they're right? Ask yourself, hey, why do they think they're right? Why do I think I'm right? People will say in my comment section, if you're not willing to talk to conservatives, it sounds like you're not willing to challenge your point of view. Talking to people who argue, what is a woman though? Like, what is a woman? They're not arguing to be curious. And most of the time, conservatives are not curious. People aren't curious. I'm willing to talk to anybody who's curious. Truly curious. Actually curious. I'm not interested in talking to anybody who is just trying to get ya. What is a woman, though? What is a woman? I wouldn't know. I've never been with one. You know, it's just like, who has time for this? People who make money talking to people of the opposite side so they can come together and make money off of your attention. That's what they're doing. These debate bros that are platforming these white nationalists and these conservatives, they're not doing it because they're meeting their, like, in a compassionate way. They're doing it to make money off of you because that's how they make their money. Look, I have privated every video I've made because when I was in my COVID era, I was trying to meet people where they were. I was trying to like really see their humanity, but I privated all those videos. I privated all my videos with Sneeko. I privated most of my videos with Destiny. I privated my video with Lauren Southern. I privated my videos that I thought would like add and platform people that I thought were bad. Even though I was trying so hard to see their humanity, and I was, they were not trying to see mine. They were not actually trying to see anybody's humanity. They just wanted to use you to make views and drama to then make money off of the viewer, which is a business model and you can keep doing it. But Pearly Things, all these debate bros, like they're not actually curious. They just want you to pay. So they need an opposition. They need somebody who's different from them to talk to them, to create drama. So people go, did you see that debate? Did you see that video? Who's that new boy? Who's that new mini Destiny that's going viral right now? The blonde boy? Connor something maybe? I don't know. He put out a tweet, right? He put out a tweet that was like, this white nationalist, like Nick Fuentes, was having dinner with Trump. I debated him a few months ago. Why are you platforming Nick Fuentes? Why are we even talking to Nick? Okay, why are we even talking to him? Dean? Oh, is his name Dean? I like how I said Connor. His name might be Dean, yeah. He was going viral and all that. Why are you platforming white nationalists? Why are you platforming? That's what I'm saying. I do not want to platform these people for views. And it is for views. It is so for views. So don't sit there and talk about moral high grounds. Trump had dinner with him. You debated him. Stop debating. Stop debating these people for views. You're just making money off of them. And you're giving them a platform to convince stupid people in your audience to be a white nationalist. Congratulations. Absolutely happening. It is absolutely happening that these people are emboldened. They're becoming more popular. Like Tate and all these people, Myron, Fresh and Fit, they rely on people making content. Okay? Okay, Ania, great point. Did y'all see Nick Fuentes got doxxed? Let's talk about it. I think it was unethical that Nick Fuentes got doxxed. Why do I say that? So allegedly, he had said some really horrific, who would have thought, misogynistic things about women. Okay? So people doxed him. Why would I say this is unethical? Do you want to live in a society where people get doxxed? Because I sure as fuck don't. Right? It's bullshit. It's bullshit that people on Twitter were bragging about how he got doxxed and he deserves it. You are what's wrong with society, but I don't blame you. You probably feel pretty justified in it. I don't want to live in a society where people dox each other. You have got to be what you expect society to be. You have got to be that person. If you are not going to be that person, how dare you ask anyone else to be? How dare you ask anyone else to be a good person when you have an audacity to live in a world where you say, I can dox somebody if they're an asshole? Well, right back at you. Don't you know in a different bubble, you're the asshole? Don't you know in the other like bubbles, you're the problem? So again, if you want to do that and you think it's correct, it's like the people who showed up to J.K. Rowling's house. Are you insane? Are you certifiably insane showing up to people's homes? You are certifiably insane to show up to people's homes. What a ridiculous thing to do. How dare you show up to somebody's fucking house? Are you insane? Have you lost the plot? It's disgusting. It's disgusting to show up to people's homes. It is disgusting to dox them. It is disgusting to in any way engage in this behavior. Gross. Gross. But you do you. Those are my values. They might not be yours, but I do think it's unethical. And Nick Fuentes is horrible, right? He is. And yes, I agree. Chat says Nick Fuentes just seems like a boring rage bait to me. He totally is rage baiting people. And look, when he first showed up on the internet and Destiny was debating him, I was like, nobody's going to take Nick Fuentes seriously. Who cares? And I said that about Tate. And, you know, I love being proven wrong. I forgot y'all were going to take these people seriously. I literally cannot believe you take these people seriously. And it worked. People took them seriously and they used you to do it. They absolutely used you to platform these people in order to get them in front of your audiences. Congratulations. Absolutely crazy. Chess says this is a weird one to me because I understand your point. The consequences that will be alt media being able to spread misinfo easier without anyone to challenge them. Proportionate censorship is needed. It's not even about government censorship either. It's not about anything. It's about, think about who you're platforming. Look, I really appreciate that a lot of people came back to my channel after I stopped talking to Destiny because they were upset with me talking to him, and I wouldn't have believed you. I wish somebody had warned me in some ways about what I was getting mixed into because I didn't know how toxic that bubble was. I didn't know. And now I feel stupid, but in hindsight, it all worked out because like I met great people along the way, but genuinely did not understand how toxic that bubble was. Had no idea what I was walking into. And now in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, people have no idea what is actually going to happen in that bubble, right? And I don't believe in deplatforming necessarily. I think only extremists should be deplatformed. But I'm telling you to pay attention to the toxicity, levels of toxicity, right? These are people that win at any cost. These are people in politics who believe you can lie and twist narratives and do whatever it takes to win, no matter how many people have to get hurt in the process. That's crazy. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I was going into that bubble. I didn't realize what I was walking into. You know, I just thought my viewers were like, hey, can you talk to this guy, Destiny? I was like, sure. I reached out. I collabed. I didn't know what I was walking into. If I had honestly researched him a little bit, I probably wouldn't have engaged. But also, man, I really was trying to meet people where they were. But then you have to understand, like, you can't meet people where they are if they never admit they're wrong. You can't. Okay. And shout out to all those people who are now in my audience who say, I'm glad you collabed with Destiny because I wouldn't have seen you. Yeah, there's a lot of blessings here. I'm very glad I did it because I so many good things happened. So many good things happened. But oh my gosh, if I could give you a warning, don't get involved. If I could give you a warning, it feels good in the moment because you think like everything is kind of a vibe until you realize like behind the scenes, it is ruthless. It is a ruthless bubble that will turn on you the moment you don't coincide with it in a way that makes sense. And it's filled with misogyny. But more than that, it really is win at any cost. At the cost of Palestinian lives, at the cost to your dignity, at the cost of people who end up hitting strays along the way. That's the problem with a lot of these bubbles. Politics is about winning. It's not about morals. So with peace and love, if you would like to, don't turn ugly because ugliness is facing you, because you are facing ugliness. Rise above the ugly because people, when they are willing to do whatever it takes to win, when they're willing to do whatever it takes, right? Whether it's doxing people or being cruel to people, like they won't help you in a way that's, you know, about your humanity. You want to build bridges with people who care about your humanity. And you should start with yourself. Do you care about people's humanity? That's why it's so heartbreaking to see Black women, small groups of them, of course. It's hard to see them not to give up on the humanity of the Palestinians. It's hard to see. But, you know, listen to people when they tell you who they are. This specific group of activists, this specific group of people, they're feeling this way, they're this hurt. Okay, fine. I hope it doesn't last. Listen to people when they tell you who they are. right? Accept that this is where America is, this is where the world is. And also pay attention to the fact that all people suffer, and we do have a hard time being compassionate, even when we're minorities, to other people. We really struggle. It's really hard to care about everybody's problems when your problems are so big. And Black people have big problems. Poor Americans, white Americans have big problems ahead of them. These tariffs, these changes Trump is enacting, we're going to have a lot of fucking problems. And it's really hard to ask people to care about your problems when they have really justified problems. So just do what you can to harm reduce, and I promise you it will make a difference. It will make a huge difference. Little steps at a time.
In my head, in real life I'm in bed, my belly's being fed and I'm okay. I'm just fine, yet all I do is whine. Not to you in my mind, cause I know I don't make sense. I've been nothing but blessed, so why's my life a mess? Please tell me, cause I'm sick of thinking. Yeah, I'm sick of reaching out for the truth and living life as a fool. Dun, dun, dun.